Axios is a news site in Washington that started out kind of nuts and bolts. Here are the bullets, an Axios formatted news where everything is a little blurb, easy to digest for the people with a short attention span. It very quickly moved to the left, It started running a bunch of climate change fear scenarios and fear porn. It started using pregnant people instead of pregnant women. It started using the phrase unhoused instead of homeless. Started painting very sympathetic portraits of trans athletes taking prizes from women. And now there's this today, an Axios explainer. Let me read you the tweet that goes with it before I dive into it. And I got to give a tip of the hat to Bill Malugin at Fox News, who saw this and called BS on it, saying these reporters have clearly not been to the border. Here's the tweet from the left-leaning Axios. By using the term open border, conservatives are suggesting that anyone can get into the U.S. without much hassle. But the reality is the southern border is more fortified than it's ever been. Axios explains the myth of the U.S.-Mexico open border. Now, let's focus first on the second sentence of the tweet before we get into the actual story. The reality is the southern border is more fortified than it's ever been. Let me go back to this data. How long is the U.S.-Mexico border? 1,954 miles. So let's go back to the second. If the reality is the southern border is more fortified than it's ever been, so it's 1,954 miles, plus or minus a few miles. If you add 5 more inches of border wall, 5 more inches, the southern border is more fortified than it's ever been. But will those 5 inches really stop anything? Russell Contreras of Axios Latino. Using the term open border, conservatives, including Jim Jordan, who's seeking the speaker role, are suggesting anyone can get into the U.S. without much hassle. Since 1992, the U.S. has quadrupled the number of border agents from less than 5,000 to nearly 20,000. Barriers, walls, and fences have been erected along portions of the 1,951 mile, they go 51, some people go 54, U.S.-Mexico border. The Border Patrol regularly breaks border arrest records, highlighting the difficulty of entering the country illegally. More recently, Biden decided to add border wall to South Texas. Lines at ports of entry have gotten longer because of new requirements to enter the United States. Wait. So the Border Patrol breaks border arrest records, highlighting the difficulty of getting into the country illegally. Now, wait just a damn minute. How is the Border Patrol arresting people at a record rate if those people aren't inside the United States? By Axios' own admission, it must be pretty freaking easy to get into this country if the Border Patrol is having arrest records, border arrest records. Now, they may be detaining more people because they have more resources to do it and they have more manpower to do it, but there are still a lot of people who get away. Here's what's going on here. The Biden administration needs some cover. Joe Biden does worse on the border issue than any other issue out there. Only 24% of Americans believe that Joe Biden is doing a good job securing the American border. Only 24%, which is remarkable that it's that high. So 24% of Americans, by the way, a majority of Democrats as well as Republicans and independents, they are opposed to Joe Biden's handling of the border. So he gets a left-wing reporter from Axios, a race and justice reporter, which should tell you everything you need to know. A president of Unity, the Journalists for Diversity. I mean, listen to this. This guy was the president of this group that advocates fair and accurate coverage about diversity, especially race, nationality, ethnicity, gender identification, sexual orientation, aggressively challenges the industry to staff its organizations at all levels to reflect the country's diversity. This guy is clearly a progressive. And he writes that the Border Patrol has a record number of arrests, which means these people crossed the border. And Axios wants to downplay it. They want to downplay it because it hurts Joe Biden. They want to downplay it because they want to minimize the blowback to Democrats' open borders policies. Here's the reality. A large number of people are crossing the border illegally. Massive numbers are overwhelming resources in this country. And what happens when they're arrested by the Border Patrol? They're spread out across the country. Cities like Chicago and New York are overwhelmed. If the border was closed, this guy doesn't want to answer this question, Russell Contreras. Russell Contreras doesn't want to answer the question. If the border is closed, how is it that New York and Chicago are overwhelmed with illegal aliens all of a sudden? If your answer is that because Texas is busing them there, you miss the point. How are there so many for Texas to bus there if the border is supposedly closed? This is remarkably disingenuous. Remarkably disingenuous. But there's a larger issue at stake here, and it's one I'm beating the drum about, and you need to know. There's an organized effort, by the way. There's an organized effort on the left to have me labeled a conspiracy theorist for pointing this out. In fact, some of my advertisers have been approached to cancel advertising on my program because of this, what I'm about to say, which they say is hysterical conspiracy theory nonsense. It is possible people who mean us harm have sneaked across the border. It is possible that people who mean us harm have sneaked across the border. 2 Iranians and Lebanese have all been stopped. Those are the ones we know about. What about the ones we don't know about? What about the people we haven't detected? What about the gotaways? We know there are about 500,000 gotaways in the last year. What are the gotaways? Those are the people that the Border Patrol knows they didn't catch. They came into the country and they didn't catch them, and there's a record number. Russell Contreras, did you know as much as there's a record number of arrests, there's a record number of gotaways? Now, those are the ones we know we didn't catch. What about the ones we don't know we didn't catch? If it's possible that there are those we didn't catch and we know we didn't catch them, surely there are those we don't even know about who got into the country. Funny how that works. And by the way, there's been an increase in border crossings on the northern border, which is completely unsecured. The United States-Canadian border is the largest unprotected border in the world. Let me say that again for you. The American border with Canada is the largest unprotected border on planet Earth. There is no military or police presence on most of that border. People can walk into the United States from Canada. There's no border wall. There's no border patrol. There's nothing. Because why would Canadians ever want to come into the United States? And if they did, we'd welcome them because they came to their sense and got out of the frozen wasteland. But now there are people flying into Canada and walking across the border. We focus on the southern border. We don't focus on the northern border. But the southern border is a national security issue. It's really kind of funny to me that Axios decided to do this spin about the southern border right as this war breaks out in Israel, and it comes a day after the United States government confirms 2 terrorists from Iran were caught at the southern border. How many weren't caught? We don't know. Russell Contreras has no idea. Russell Contreras doesn't want to know. Russell Contreras wants you to believe that the border is perfectly safe and closed. This is spin. It is partisan spin by a progressive operation. I hope, I pray that we are not subject to a terrorist attack from people who came across the border. I hope and I pray that that doesn't happen. But I'm also not sure it won't happen, given the situation, given what we've seen, given what we've heard, given the reports. How do we know there aren't sleeper cells here? This isn't conspiracy territory. Kevin McCarthy himself has been raising this issue. Members of the military have been raising this issue. Members of the Border Patrol have been raising this issue. It's not just me, some wild conspiracy theorist in Georgia, talking to you on the radio. Its leaders in this country are concerned about it, and the Democrats cannot get themselves convinced they got to secure the border because they want immigration reform and they want to tie the two together. Who cares about terrorists coming across the border? They're hoping they can get votes out of it from illegal aliens. It's all about preservation of power for them. You should all be disturbed by that.